shouldn't act or say something you shouldn't say. This is why he said, where's your attitude? Attitude towards sickness, bills, family, friends, association. See it? Loneliness. Wanting money, not having money. Wanting a job, not having a job. Where's your attitude towards that? Wanting a woman, don't and can't have one yet until God says something, you're still single as a single man. Wanting a man as a single woman is still wanting a man as a single woman, God said not yet. See, what is your attitude towards that? You see the point? God is saying, He's saying spiritual readjustment in the fire establishes maintaining. Many are not maintaining. They were doing good, like the person who was off the bottle. They were doing good. God said, I want to have you in the fire for about 4 to 5 months. And after 2.5 months, you were doing well. You were rejoicing. You had peace. You were believing. You didn't let things bother you. And after 2.5 months, that thing was still on you. So all of a sudden, you fell off. You fell off. And all of a sudden, now you're back to being agitated, mean, on the fence, agitated, no peace. You see? And God said, I was never intended for you to go back to that. I was trying to keep you to a place where you stay on the same path of peace. So what He's saying is, where's your attitude? Don't fall off and go back. Don't fall off the wagon. Don't fall off, because see, if you're on that path, don't be in peace one day and then the next minute you agitated and full of frustration and can't believe God. And see, this is what God has to do. This is what He has to do. He has to show up and show you, I'm still working. And that's why He has blessed you certain ways to show you, stay in my peace, daughter. Stay in my peace, son, because I'm trying to do something. Out of mercy, I'm going to do this with my favor. But at the same time, for a minute, you got in a place of frustration and worration. But because I'm merciful to show you that I'm still trying to keep you in this place of peace, I'm going to do this to show you, don't back out of this place. So I'm going to do this just for you to show you, don't back out of this place of peace that you were in, but was struggling and almost going back to a place of a lack of peace. So now, guess what? Because sometimes the situation can be so overwhelming that you almost be tempted not to go back to a place of a lack of peace. Remember what you heard me say? You keep hearing me say this every week. When you come to the place of peace, what? It's almost over. It's almost over. So God is saying spiritual readjustment. See, now this is week number 7, 8, whatever the week this is. I think it's 8. Is this. He's saying, in this time frame, I have to have spiritual readjustment for my people. Spiritual readjustment. Spiritual readjustment of what? Of your heart. Spiritual readjustment of what? Your mind. Spiritual readjustment. Spiritual readjustment of your heart. If your heart is not in a place where it needs to be with God based on where it was at one point, you need to readjust it. You say, well, how do you mean? Because remember something, He said at one point it was there. And all of a sudden you got so overwhelmed and so frustrated that you let your heart go back to the place I was telling you not to let it go to. So He says spiritual readjustment. Meaning get it back in the place it's supposed to be. And He said, where's your attitude? It means, where's your attitude? Where's the attitude of your heart? Where's the attitude of your heart? Then it says, your mind. Your mind used to be in a place of believing totally God and thinking totally about the Lord and what He's going to do. Now your mind is thinking about, how is He going to do it? Is it going to get done? How would this work out? This is going to take a miracle. Whereas before you said, I believe in God for a miracle. I know He's going to do it. I believe it's going to be done. I'm just waiting for the manifestation. And God said, I didn't tell you to go back to this mindset of thinking, I want to begin to get done. Lord have mercy. This is so much. See, He said, where's your mind? Readjust your mind back to where it was at one point. Spiritual readjustments in the fire establishes maintaining in the fire. See, we can't maintain if we don't understand. Sometimes we maybe need to get a readjustment. See? But you have to be honest with yourself and see whether you're there or not. See, because if you're not honest with yourself, then God said you're in a place where you don't recognize where you are in the fire. And one of the things you don't want to do is Be in the fire and not recognize where you are after a certain period of time. Readjustment. He's saying you also have to readjust and be submitted to him. And be submitted to him. He said, submit yourself. At one point, he was very submitted to his son and daughter. You're very submitted to him. He was in prayer. He was in your word. He was doing these things. All of a sudden, you felt like the submission didn't matter anymore. You don't want to get up now. You don't want to get up and pray. You don't want to read your word. You don't want to dedicate yourself. You don't want to be submitted now. Now, you're not in total rebellion, but it's like he's saying, readjust yourself back to how you were. Do you know, watch that. Do you know this? Do you know that a lot of times when a person's not in peace, let me tell you this now, watch that. A person's not in peace. And when a person has lost their peace, let me tell you something. Do you know that person, not saying they will, but can stop caring about rest? You realize that? Because when you get frustrated, do you realize you don't care about rest? He said, listen, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Let me show you what it has to do with that. So when you start caring about peace and the things of God and submitting to Him, you begin to understand how important your body is. You begin to understand how important rest is, how important eating right is. You begin to understand how important that is. And so rest is a part of resting in God, and you begin to understand the importance of your body and your rest in Him. So what happens a lot of times is when we don't care, when we stop caring, we begin to just run our body down and not care about it. And then we stay tired. You know what I'm saying? We just run our body down, just run it down, just stay tired. So God said that if we can understand with our peace, we understand the importance of how to maintain us. The next thing, he said, you got to understand how to readjust your mind, how to readjust your heart, how to readjust being submitted to Him. Okay? Being submitted and obedient to Him. Now the next thing we have is this. If you readjust yourself, or readjust ourselves, then what we do, we understand that we have to go back to honoring God. So let me explain something to you. See, we can't call ourselves honoring God and we don't see the things that's important to Him as important, and we handle it haphazardly. You know what I'm saying? We don't see coming to church on time as important. We don't see paying our tithe as important. We don't see paying the seed as important. We don't see honoring the man or woman of God as important. We don't see honoring the kingdom as important. See, that means we lost a part of honor. See, this is what we understand. If you don't honor God, you're not going to honor a lot of things in the kingdom. You're not honoring them. You're not going to really honor things in the kingdom, because when you stop honoring God, you can stop honoring all those things that pertains to Him. And see, the manifestation of where our spirit is a lot of times shows up with people, but really, God says it's already there with me, because it's now starting to show up with people. It's now starting to show up with people, but it's already there with me. So God said a lot of times when you dishonor and you don't honor me, then that means you're not going to honor the things in the kingdom when you need to, or where we need to. We're not going to honor things in the kingdom where we need to. So God said, readjust your spirit, or readjust our spirits back to a place of honoring Him so that we can honor His kingdom. See, because I'm going to tell you something. When you really respect God, I'm not saying you don't love Him, I'm saying we're not a Christian, I'm not saying none of that. This is not what I'm saying. When we really honor God, we're going to start honoring His things. It's just that simple. Things that pertain to His kingdom and His name, we're going to honor Him. Because when we really honor Him, we're going to really want to honor things that relates and pertains to Him. Spiritual readjustment in the fire establishes maintaining in the fire. He said, where's your attitude? So that means, where's your attitude towards honor? Because if your attitude is not right pertaining to honor, see, one point you can see this, a person can be honoring God at a certain point, just like that person who fell off and got back on the bottle. It's the same thing. They can be honoring God so excellently, and all of a sudden they stop, and you see the manifestations of it, and around you based on. Because when you're honoring God, you will see it in the manifestations of the kingdom and the things that pertain to the kingdom. So when a person stops, then that person need to question, how's my honor towards him? You can't separate him in his kingdom. You can't separate him. I'm just being real. You can't separate him and his kingdom. You can't separate. And if you can't separate him and his kingdom, when you start honoring things in the kingdom, it's a byproduct that maybe, I'm not saying it will, byproduct of the honor that is probably kind of drifting off pertaining to him. See? Because when you honor God, you want to honor the thing that pertains to his kingdom and him and his attributes. That is, where's your attitude towards honor? See? And see, what God's saying is in this fire, that means we're supposed to be getting more honor, more of a heart towards him, more of a mind towards him. You see the point? When your mind, like remember one of the messages I preached about, where it's causing many to back up? Well, how we should be backing up. That means many are backing up, and their heart is becoming less for God. Their mind is less for God. They're honoring God less. When the Bible is what? Taking us more towards the heart, being more for him, the mind being for him, and the honor being more for him. And also submission and obedience. Should be, and the fire should be bringing us more to a place of obedience, more to a place of submission. If we're submitting less and obeying less, that means the fire got us backing up. This is why he asks the question, where's your attitude? See, so guess what? Now we're saying, if the fire's not over, watch this. If we're praying to God, this is what's happening. If we're praying to God and asking God, when God win, when God win, when God win, then that means this. That means that God is saying to us, it's going to happen, but it ain't happened yet. That means he still got us in the fire for a reason. And if he still got us in the fire for a reason, we need to maintain in the fire until it's over. Why should we lose our place when he's saying maintaining it? It's almost over, my daughter. It's almost over, my son. But don't lose your place and this thing is almost over. This thing is about over. But maintain it till I tell you it's over. Maybe another 3 weeks, you may be right around the corner. Maybe another month and a half, you may be right around the corner. But he's saying don't lose your place while you're in the fire. Maintain until it's over. Maintain until it's over. See, this is why he's saying readjustment. Because he's saying many have lost their way along the way. Because that means they were doing well after 2.5, 3 months. But going into the month 4, they started acting crazy. And they started losing it. They were faithful in church, they were faithful in the kingdom, faithful in giving, faithful in being dedicated, faithful in prayer, faithful in the word. All of a sudden, don't want to read no word, don't want to give, don't want to study, don't want to pray, don't want to do nothing. See? But yet, God's saying, you lost your way along the way in this fire. When really you were supposed to keep and maintain while you're in the fire. You were supposed to maintain and keep your way. That means it also should be a greater level of what is your adjustment? Should there be a readjustment in the area of humility? Should there be? Because what happened is, see, God was saying your attitude, our attitude towards humility in the fire is to become more. Remember what you heard me say? We should be becoming more humble. More humble. See, when we don't become more humble, we become prideful. Or can become prideful. We say that. Can become prideful. So if we can become prideful, that means he's saying if you're not becoming more humble, that means you're standing in a place of one place of humility. That means pride has got to be getting in, even in that place you're in, when you should be going lower in humility. So now if that's the case, watch this. If that's the case, watch this. God's saying, where's your attitude towards humility versus allowing pride to maybe come in and cause you this place where you begin to not maintain like you're supposed to or like you once was in the fire. Because of pride come in, I'm going to tell you something. That's a bad thing. Before pride. See? And so now what you got to understand is this here. God's saying this. He's saying, remember this. Pride and humility war against each other. But what I'm trying to get my people to do is maintain in an area of humility. Maintain in an area of humility. Why? Because humility is what's going to get you to maintain right and see everything the way God would want you to see it. You see? So now watch this. If that is the case, then God's saying if we are not going to greater levels of humility, then guess what? Pride may be coming in. Pride may be coming in. See? Now watch this. Now watch this. The next one we have is dedication and commitment. Dedication and commitment. So the dedication used to really be in place. And the commitment used to really be in place. And now what has happened, God's saying to a lot of his people in the kingdom, the commitment is not there like it used to be. The dedication is not there like it used to be. But you know what? The Lord began to let me know that dedication and commitment goes to so many areas. See, from going to church, to revival, to giving, to sowing, to sharing, to witnessing, to supporting. You see some person used to support greatly their ministry in many ways, not just. And they so used to support it, and all of a sudden they just slack up on how they want to go. You got to go out and preach, then how they want to come. Got to go out church, got to go to do this, then how they want to come. Because see what has happened, they don't understand that their spirit doesn't back up something. Their spirit doesn't back up something. They don't even realize it with themselves. This is what God's saying, spiritual readjustment. He's saying at this point, a lot of people need readjustment. They need a chiropractor in the spirit to come. And the chiropractor is one that's going to get this body back in line. See, and so a lot of times what we don't understand is what God is saying is, I'm trying to get you to, God said I'm trying to get my people to maintain in this fire. A lot of them have lost their way along the way. They're not lost in it. They're not lost as not having God. They've lost their way and not seeing what I want them to see to do what they need to do while they're in it. That's what he's talking about, lost their way along the way. Because remember something. You have to remember this. Dedication and commitment. We understand not to be legalistic about it, but I'm going to tell you something. When you lose dedication and commitment, that's a very, 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 very dangerous place. Because I'm going to tell you something, it's going to show up in everything. It's going to show up in everything. That means if you got an office in the church and you're supposed to be doing certain things, you slack up for that. If you're supposed to be giving, you slack up for that. You're supposed to be supporting physically, you slack up for that. Why? Because whenever there's a lack of dedication and commitment, there's some dedication and there's some commitment, but not in all of it the way God would want it to be. Not legalism, not going overboard, but not the way God would want it to be. And whenever we lose a level of that, that's trouble because it's going to show up in everything. It's going to show up in everything. The next one we have is